Hello, everyone. It is June 3rd, 2019. The date is important, but the guest is even more important. My name is John DeLynn. We are here on Mormon Stories Podcast, and we are very excited today to have back on Mormon Stories Podcast, Crystal Escobar. Those of you who are close followers and fans of Mormon Stories Podcast will recognize Crystal's name. Crystal and Sean joined us a few weeks ago on Mormon Stories and shared epic, a gripping, emotional, and powerful story with us about their lives growing up in the church, about their marriage, and specifically about Sean Escobar's experience of abuse that was not handled appropriately by the church, that left his abuser to go on and abuse other people. And that's been covered in the New York Times, and it was a powerful story. And then we ended by talking about Crystal and Sean Escobar's faith crisis. What we didn't get to finish talking about or begin talking about was Crystal and her amazing story, specifically around how she has navigated motherhood and trying to be an entrepreneur. And what we're going to be talking about specifically, kind of as our target today, is this book that Crystal has written. The book is called My Life as a Wannabe Balanced Mom by Crystal Escobar. And I'll just read what it says on the back. Am I a good mom if I have interests and passions outside of motherhood? This question has plagued mothers for generations, and I'll say especially Mormon mothers. As a mother of four and successful momtrepreneur, Crystal Escobar has documented her struggle with this balance between family and self on her popular blog, Wannabe Balanced Mom. In this book, she authentically shares her story of desperately trying to be liked by everyone, fighting against her wavering self-worth, and always feeling she wasn't measuring up as a mother. And this is particularly important for the Mormon Stories audience and for the Mormon faith crisis audience and other audiences, because when modern day Mormons are realizing that the way that many of us were raised is not going to work, or is not going to bring us or our family joy in the long run. Specifically, if you guys will remember, in the past, we've had some women on who have been willing to talk about what it's like to have a faith crisis as a woman, but more specifically, when your life kind of falls apart, how do you deal with a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, enjoying motherhood, but also realizing that maybe you want to have a career, maybe you want to have a profession, maybe you want to find other ways of meaning and purpose outside of religion, but also outside of wifehood or spousalhood or motherhood. And so it's really important for our audience, especially for the women in our audience, to get examples of other women who have found a way to navigate this. We had, as one episode that I remember, Colette Larson come on, a gripping episode. I strongly remember you guys check it out. Recommend you guys check it out. Colette talked about after a couple divorces and some severe medical issues with her children, how she became a successful entrepreneur as a woman. And so look to Mormon Stories from time to time to be showcasing women who have rebuilt their lives during and after a faith crisis, incorporating meaningful pursuits and even professional endeavors, work as a part of their rebuilding. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And Crystal Escobar, I'm really grateful to have you back on to talk about your new book.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So before we actually jump into the book, My Life as a Wannabe Balanced Mom, let's just talk about your story. Let's go back in time. We've covered a bit of your story already with Sean, but why don't you just share with us your journey as a mom and your journey into your blog and ultimately into writing a book and being an entrepreneur as a Mormon mom and then as a post-Mormon mom. Take us through that. And then later we're going to bring on, after we kind of have you tell your story, we're going to bring on some of your readers and we're going to have a little panel discussion about this book and how it applies to their life. But let's just begin. Take us back and talk to us about your story a bit.
Okay, yes. So when I first became a mom, and I do share all of this in the book, and my thoughts initially was complete overwhelm. I suddenly realized all the responsibilities that I had as a mom, and not only just as a mom and keeping my kids safe and fed and caring for their every need. I also felt an immense amount of pressure from the religion to do it perfectly. Like, our goal is to raise up these kids to be strong members of the church that would eventually go on missions and get married in the temple. And it felt like a lot of weight on my shoulders. And I felt like in the beginning, just a huge, I just felt a lot of worry that I might not do this right. And that maybe I wasn't cut out for this, because I worried that I wouldn't be able to teach them all the things that they needed to know, and feeling so much pressure around, making sure that I read the scriptures with them regularly and say those prayers and do the family home evening and fulfill my callings, and all these different things that I felt in the beginning just felt really overwhelming. And at first I just kind of had a little pity party, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I can do this. This is hard. I didn't realize that this was going to be like all of my time. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm just selfish because I wish I had a little bit of time to myself to pursue different dreams of mine, which one of them was to write a book. And I've had that goal for even before I became a mom. And so I think I had a lot of conflicting beliefs, or just a lot of conflict in my mind, wanting to do so much, but not feeling like I was allowed to, in a way, because we're taught in the church that, a mother's role is in the home. And I felt a lot of pressure to make sure that I was devoting 100% of my time to my kids. But I also felt this urge deep within me to do something else. And so I think,
let me ask you, Crystal,
yeah.
Like, as I'm thinking about how I was raised, and you guys are maybe a bit younger than me and Margie, but when I was growing up, Ezra Taft Benson was the prophet during kind of my high school years. And he was famous for giving these talks. There's always the quote, no success can compensate for failure in the home. That's not Ezra Taft Benson, but he would also give these conference talks or these BYU talks where he would basically say the woman's place is in the home. If a woman works outside the home, she's betraying her kids, she's sacrificing her birthright, she's damaging the family. And so that's the environment that I grew up in. And there was kind of this anti-feminist sort of, impulse as well. So that was there. And then, of course, there was kind of this Saturday's warrior mentality, which is there are all these spirits in the pre-existence who are needing bodies. And if righteous, healthy Mormon families don't get those spirits, they're going to get sent to other families that aren't Mormon, heaven forbid, or that aren't righteous. And so all of that was this backdrop, this Mormon backdrop and of course, women weren't encouraged to get their degrees. They weren't encouraged to get their education. Or if they did get their degrees or their education, and my mom even admitted this. She was taught a woman only needs 2 years of college. She taught my sisters this as well. So my sisters didn't end up graduating, in their early years in the church. One of my sisters had to go back later to do that. But the point is that, if women are encouraged to get a degree at all, it's usually elementary ed or homemaking or family, home, and human development, and only as this backdrop to where, okay, if the husband dies or leaves the wife, then she can fall back on a really basic career that's not very lucrative. And so that's kind of the environment that many women enter into marriage. It's sort of very vulnerable, very dependent on the husband as the breadwinner, undereducated, underexperienced career-wise, and feeling like all their joy and meaning and fulfillment is going to come from popping out lots of babies and loving every minute of raising them. And that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but does that resonate with what
actually not an exaggeration at all. You said that so perfectly, because yes, I did feel this dependence on Sean, which I felt grateful for too at the same time, like grateful that he was providing for us, but also at the same time, I didn't like feeling so dependent on him. I felt like I want to be able to contribute. I want to even know that I could provide as well. I want to know that about myself. And I think I struggled with that a lot too. And anytime I felt these feelings, I felt bad about myself. Like, oh, I must not be like a good LDS mom because I'm not loving this 100% motherhood all of the time. Like there's something wrong with me because I want to do more. I want to work. I want to learn. I want to educate myself. And so I did feel like I didn't really talk about these feelings that I was having in the beginning of motherhood, because I felt really guilty about it. Like there was something wrong with me for wanting to work, like thinking, oh, maybe I don't love my kids if I want to be away from them sometimes, And so it just like, I just felt really bad about myself for even thinking those thoughts. Like I would like to go pursue something. And, I am happy with, the way things turned out. I somehow figured out how to make it work to be able to pursue my own thing and still be home with my kids. So I have no regrets. It's just, if I could go back, I would remove the constant shame I put on myself for wanting to work.
So, yeah. Okay. So when you and Sean got married, did you kind of have this agreement of how many kids you would have?
Yeah, I think we always knew we'd have at least 4. Sean wanted more. And I talk about this struggle that I had around deciding how many kids we should have in one of the chapters in the book. And I felt a lot of pressure to have more than 4, which I felt like 4 was as much as I could handle. But I also felt a lot of guilt and shame that there was something wrong with me because I didn't have enough faith that I could handle another one. And so I ended up getting a tubal ligation, and then I got it reversed because I was like, oh, wait, maybe God's mad at me. Maybe I can do this, And so it was a lot of struggle with, making the decision of how many kids we would have and feeling this pressure to have a lot.
So you were thinking at least 4. That was kind of the agreement going in. Yeah. Was there an agreement of what your role would be versus his role? Was it even explicit, or was it not explicit and just kind of implied or understood?
Yeah, it was just understood. Like we didn't really, I think we just, anytime we would talk about it, it wasn't like Sean saying that is your role. It was more like, this is what the church teaches. Your role is to be a mom. But Sean was very good about trying to support me, even like when I was helping out more in our business together in Isogenics. He, I would talk with him a lot, and I was really excited about what I was building in Isogenics. And I would talk with him a lot about, do you think it's bad that I'm working? Because I would get a babysitter twice a week. And I felt really guilty about that, so a babysitter that I could work.
So as you start having kids, Sean's building his business. And is that the first taste you got of working outside? Motherhood was helping Sean build his business. Was that the first taste, or was there something before that?
That was before my blog. Yep. It was working in the business together. I wanted to feel like I could contribute, that I had the ability to make money too. And
so when you take that first jump, are you thinking we desperately need this because Sean needs my help? Were you thinking, oh, that looks fun, I want to be a part of that? Were you thinking, oh man, I'm not getting the fulfillment that I really thought I would, I need something else to do? What were some of the initial impulses that had you take that first leap to help Sean?
Yeah, and that was another reason why I felt bad about it, is because Sean always did very well with providing for us. So it never felt like I had to help, and so that's why I felt even worse about it, because I'm like, oh, well, he's doing fine on his own. He doesn't really need my help. But I still felt like, but I want to do something. I want to do more. I want to help. And I want to even more so just provide that for myself, that that belief in myself that I can make money too. I just needed to feel that, but there was never any pressure from him that he needed my help.
Okay. So as you started having babies, did you feel like, oh, there's something missing, or, oh, I'm not loving this like I thought, or, oh, this is harder than I thought, or, oh, I'm more than this? Talk about those feelings you were having as the babies were coming out, as Sean was working, where you weren't just happy just being a mom all the time.
Yeah, I would have all these different ideas come to my mind, like, oh, maybe I could do this. Oh, I could probably do this. And I would definitely suppress them. Like sometimes I'd be up late at night thinking of all these cool ideas of things that I could do or that I wanted to do, to build something, to make money doing it. And I felt like I was just constantly suppressing that and thinking, oh, I could probably do that in like 10 or 15 years when my kids are all in school. I'll get to do that. So I would have like excitement and ideas of things I wanted to do, but I would definitely suppress a lot of it. And then I would think, well, maybe I could do a little bit. And that's where the whole blog, the balance, and the idea of balance came in to be, because.
But part of what I'm trying to get at is, someone might say, well, you just must not have enjoyed being a mom. And sometimes the reaction will be, oh no, I love being a mom. I just wanted to do more. Sometimes there's a legitimate reaction. Some women discover they didn't really love it like they thought they would. And I want to create space for that too, because not everybody's cut out to be a stay-at-home mom or a dad or a stay-at-home dad. And you kind of don't know until you do it, how much it fills you versus not, how much you love it versus not, how much you hate it versus not. So talk about that. What about motherhood either was harder than you thought or not as fulfilling as you thought, or did you feel any of those things?
Yeah, I definitely did. And I guess it is still hard to admit that I didn't love it the way I thought I would, because it makes me feel like I'm not a good mom, or I don't love my kids, or something about it is still hard for me to say. But it definitely was not what I envisioned. Motherhood was not what I envisioned. And I thought that there would still be plenty of time for me to read books and to pursue different things that I wanted to do. But, that was a shocker. It was a shocker when I started having kids to realize that, oh, there is no time. Like you don't get any time to do the things that you want to do. And then if you want to hire a babysitter to do the things you want to do, I just had to constantly feel guilty for it.
Why guilty? Why would you feel guilty hiring a babysitter?
Because that it felt like I was going against what the prophets have taught us, that that I should be devoting my time to always teaching my kids and playing with them. And I definitely liked doing that for a portion of the day, but I wasn't enjoying that 100% of the time. I wanted to just find time to do the things that I like to do. And then I felt more refreshed to do, the things to fulfill my role as a mom. So yeah, I think it's just hard to admit that I didn't love it the way I thought I would,
Yeah, but it's so important to talk about it. So I just really appreciate you being willing to admit that. It doesn't mean you don't love your kids. It doesn't mean you're not a good mom. It just means it feels differently. I've got someone close to me who married her husband and had kids thinking it would make them happy, and it didn't make them happy. And they ended up blowing up the marriage because all the promises that were made to them didn't come true. I noticed that last week you joined the Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis podcast, where me and Margie and Natasha were talking about, women going through a faith transition. I told the story of how Margie had gotten great grades. She was going to go get a master's degree in literature. She was a distinguished student in literature. And she was like this NCAA athlete, top, nationally sort of a national caliber NCAA athlete. And then all of a sudden she leaves BYU, doesn't get her degree, stops being a runner. And it felt like she started going crazy, cutting her hair all the time, rearranging the furniture, cutting her hair again, getting angry a lot. And it took us probably 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years to realize that she wasn't totally happy in all that. And we probably had more kids than she really wanted to have. And motherhood didn't fill some of those places that she really needed to fill. And so she developed some pretty significant anxiety over that, and it caused a lot of conflict in our marriage. Can you relate to any of that?
Well, I can relate to being angry a lot of the time and feeling just resentful towards Sean, like almost just wishing that I had his role instead, like I wish I could just go work all day and you could just be here doing the household chores and making all the meals and dealing with the tantrums and staying up late, all night with babies. Like I had a lot of resentment, and Sean, he helped a lot, he works from home. So I had it a lot easier than most women, I believe, but I still just wished I had more freedom to just work more. And I resented having to wake up late at, all through the night with babies. And yeah, just frustrated that I felt like my role was a lot harder, but I'm sure, it's not the case. I just wish that I think I just learned over time how to have a balance, how to figure out how to incorporate doing the things that I want to do. And since leaving the religion has just really been it more about being able to finally release the shame, because I think I figured out how to just work anyway and to pursue the things that I wanted to. But I would like to go back and just remove all the guilt that I had.
Yeah. It's just so natural, that guilt and shame you were feeling. And let's not jump too far ahead in the story, because I kind of want to take this in a bit of a timeline. Lots of people are listening online. Leah Young says, so much peace and empowerment as we feel worthy and whole. She says, hi, Crystal Escobar. So a shout out to Leah Young. Glad she joined us. Melissa says, I've been looking forward to this interview with Crystal. She also writes, I hate that Mormon mindset for women, referring to sort of women are to be barefoot and pregnant mindset and not to work outside the home. She says, I'm so grateful that I took the time to get 2 degrees. Heidi writes, it especially became hard when I was all of a sudden a single mom with 3 kids and a stay-at-home mom 20 plus years ago. Thankful now that I'm very independent. And Lauren is also connecting with you. So lots of good listener feedback so far. So, and I just want to say, Crystal, that having spent a lot of time supporting Margie as mom and his dad, and then working outside the home, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying in many ways being a mom is way harder. And the way that you know that, you don't have a lot of husbands begging to stay home and take care of the kids, right? Women had to be conditioned to play that role, taught that from a very young age. And husbands are very, very happy to stay late at work, to travel, and are not breaking down the doors to stay home with the kids. And I think the fulfillment you get in the job place, the sense of independence, the sense of creative outlet, talking to adults all day, getting inspired, making friendships, achieving, getting paid more, getting a sense of security, all that's in many ways, what's not the love, right?
Yeah, but then we're taught that motherhood is the most sacred of all callings. So how could you dare say that you're not enjoying it 100% and that it's hard? Like, I just felt like I wish I could have just been a little more authentic about the way I was feeling and not suppress and be like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not a good mom because I'm having these feelings.
Right. It's like you get your flower on Mother's Day once a year at church, that you should be grateful, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you start helping Sean with his business and you start liking it. How does your careers and aspirations develop after that?
Well, yeah, I think that Sean was always very supportive. He never made me feel like you shouldn't work, even though the prophets would, say that, because we would talk about it and I would say, I really like this. Do you think it's bad that I'm doing this? And he would just reassure me like, no, I think it's fine, and it's just more about having a good balance. And I felt really good about figuring out how to still be, all in as a mom and not just go 100% the opposite and be like, hey, I just, let them fend for themselves. I'll just get babysitters all day, every day, and I'll do my thing. I think I figured out a good, healthy balance around it where, and that's when eventually it felt inspired to start writing my blog, because I felt like, I think it is important for women, mothers, and especially in the church to get to a place of feeling like it's okay for you to pursue things that you like, to pursue your interests and to build something or to create something. I just realized how important it was for me. And so then I began blogging about it, and I felt like I could figure out a way where I could help these Mormon women, because that was my target audience was Mormon moms. And I really wanted to help.
Let me ask you, Crystal, at the time what year did you start the blog?
In about 2010.
Okay. So this is 9 years ago. Were there other bloggers, mommy bloggers out there that you followed that kind of inspired you? Or not?
Well, they weren't LDS.
That's fine.
It was the Pioneer Woman, which at first I did think she was LDS because it was called the Pioneer Woman. I just figured, and she just seemed like an LDS woman, and she just like homeschooled her kids. She blogged, she wrote a book, and there was even definitely, which is funny, Michelle Duggar. She, the reality show 19 and Counting. I was just like, oh my gosh, now this is an example of a woman who has done it all, and I'm going to do what she's done. I'm going to have a lot of kids. I'm going to homeschool them all. I'm going to write a book, because she wrote a book too. And I just figured, I saw these women that were doing all of it and feeling like, okay, well, they figured out how to do it all. And both those women that I was inspired by were women like Ray Drummond from the Pioneer Woman. I saw them doing a fabulous job at being a career woman. And, they wrote their books and they homeschooled their kids, but they weren't Mormon, but somehow they kind of seem to live as a Mormon mom.
Okay. So you say, I'm going to do this blog thing. I'm going to homeschool my kids and I'm going to write a book and help people. It seems like an important part of that was you were trying to turn the difficulty of being a mom, of balancing things, of the guilt and the shame that you were feeling. You were trying to make meaning and purpose out of that by trying to help other women who are going through the same things. I very much relate to that. I went through a faith crisis. I wanted to do a podcast and a blog and eventually a book and a PhD to help people with the thing that I struggled with. Was that an important component for you, finding that cause that you could then help others with?
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Okay. So you start the blog and you start homeschooling. What was that like at the beginning? Was it easy? Did it just take off? Were you like an overnight sensation? How did it go when you first took that leap? What were those first steps and how was that for you?
My blog has just been, it's never been this huge, like overnight thing. It's just been very gradual all these years. There's many women that have been reading my blog since I first started, and it's really cool to see that. But my blog was very small in the beginning, and it was small for a long time, but I still felt like I was connecting with women who needed to hear what I was saying. And I think that once I started, I think I just began piling more and more onto my plate. And homeschooling, when I started homeschooling, I realized that I don't know how women are doing it. I don't know how these Michelle Duggar, well, probably because she had so many kids that were helping raise the other kids, but I didn't know how to find that balance and homeschool my kids and still have a blog. And you
talk about this in one of your chapters in the book. Let's just talk about the homeschooling part for a second. How did that end up?
It was definitely not what I envisioned. I thought that it was going to go, I definitely had this perfect visual in my mind that we were going to just be home and I was going to make these healthy meals and we would have all this quality time together. I would teach them all these amazing life lessons and the house they would help me clean the house. And it was just turned out to be a really great experience, but also not what I had hoped for. And which means my house was messy. It was stressful a lot of the times. I had no time to barely even work out and do anything that I wanted to do. I spent any free time that I had planning for the next day or any other activities that I was going to do with the kids. So there was no time for me and there was no time for my blog. And so I quit the blog and just homeschooled. But then little by little, I found myself feeling extremely depleted and just kind of losing enthusiasm for anything and frustrated. I think that's the time where I yelled the most at my kids was when I was trying to be the perfect mom and just give them 100% of my time. And I just realized that I was just really unhappy because I couldn't find any time to do the things that I wanted to do or to do anything that allowed me to feel somewhat replenished,
So did you have to give up the homeschooling?
Yeah, so I did give up homeschooling and I felt a lot of guilt.
How long did you do
it? I did it for almost 3 years.
Okay. And at the end you gave up?
Yeah, and I felt really I felt really ashamed when I gave up because I thought that I was going to do homeschooling. I was going to go all the way through high school with all my kids, and I barely made it to 3rd grade with my first, So,
and
yeah.
How did you deal with this feelings of failure or guilt and shame around stopping homeschooling?
I guess I just had to realize what happened and the fact that I can't, maybe I'm not because I know a lot of moms can do it. And so I couldn't just say, it just doesn't work, mom, it's just not possible. And I think I would always compare myself with other moms that could do it and wondered what is wrong with me, So I really just chalked it up to the fact that I must be just a little bit selfish because I need time to do things that I want to do. So I think I just finally admitted that I am a little bit selfish. So that's kind of, I just thought that about myself, that I just need to do my thing. And so I just accepted it, I guess. But now I don't see it as selfish. I just realized that you can find a balance between being there for your kids and being there for yourself.
And I think it sounds like part of that is being willing to give up on some of your ambitions. It sounds like that was an important moment of learning that you do cover in the book, which is be able and willing to let some things go if you can't do it all. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I had to definitely allow myself to let go of homeschooling and let go of trying to, like, there's just a list long of things that I would do every day that I thought I had to do. Like I would juice for my kids like every day for like 2 years. I tried to have a garden. I tried to not hire out any help and, tried to teach my kids to do, some of the housework. And so, yeah, I just think that I finally had to get to a point where it's okay to hire help. It's okay to quit homeschooling. It's okay to not have a garden. It's okay to not juice for your kids and have the perfect healthy meal all the time. So I just had to let a lot of things go. And I realized that it's okay.
I love it. Okay, back to your blogging. A billion people have started a blog and 500 million people have started podcasts. And there's, of course, many, many other ways to have a career or hobbies or profession or whatever. But I think something that's in common for all those endeavors is overcoming the fear of beginning. But then once you begin, if it, sometimes after a month or 2 or 3 or 6 or even a year, it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to lose focus. It's easy to lose commitment. Did you have those feelings of like, this isn't working, I'm not a success, it's not as great, I'm not doing it as well as I should? How did you deal with those initial feelings in those first couple of years when things weren't skyrocketing? How did you keep going during that time and not giving up?
Yeah, I definitely compared myself a lot to other bloggers, other YouTubers, podcasters, Instagrammers, you name it. I was constantly comparing, feeling like maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do because I'm not like this overnight success, or my videos aren't going viral, and everything is just a very gradual growth for me. And what I realized, though, that when I did quit my blog, because I quit because I was overwhelmed from homeschooling, but I also quit feeling like, what do I have to offer? Like, there's already so many great bloggers out there. Why do I feel like I have anything new to offer? So I just allowed myself to quit, thinking that maybe it's just not what I'm supposed to do. But I realized that I just enjoy it. And I think once I finally got to that place of, I don't have to worry so much about the numbers and how it's growing and who's reading it and all that, I realized that even if nobody read it, I had to ask myself, well, do I still like doing it? And I do, because I see my own personal growth in the process. I love improving my writing skills. I love improving my communication skills through podcasting, and I love the creative outlet through making YouTube videos. So I just had to realize that it's not really so much about how many people are watching or reading or listening. It's more about doing what is very much fulfilling for me. So I think that you just have to get to that place anytime you're pursuing something, that you just have to really understand and ask yourself, is it something that you really love to do? And are you doing it because you love to do it? Or are you doing it because you're trying to make money or be this highly influential person? And which I was in the beginning. I just thought, well, that equals success. But I realized over time that success just equals fulfillment is what success is. And I realized that I was just fulfilled doing these things, whether people are reading or listening or watching.
That's so critical. When I think about Mormon stories, I just realized that I loved talking to people and hearing their stories. And I could hear story after story after story and kind of never get sick of it. And I did it for years, never making any money to speak of at all. But it was so mission driven. It was so such a thing of passion for me. And I just fundamentally enjoyed listening to people's stories that carried me through those first several years where there was no statistical or monetary success, that was in any way overwhelming or sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are you saying you love writing and that you love blogging and that you've loved YouTubing? That's just stuff is fun for you and you enjoy it?
Yeah, I definitely do. It is fun to have I think self-expression is very important for me, and I think most people, to be able to express themselves in some way or another. And there's a lot of different avenues to do that. And for me, just creating videos and sharing my thoughts and different life lessons on the podcast, and then writing it in my book, has been very satisfying for me.
I love it. What did you start noticing about your impact? So as you start blogging, as you start connecting with your audience, what type of feedback did you get, and what type of positive reinforcement did you get that you were actually doing stuff that meant a lot? Can you talk about the response of your early listeners and readers?
Yeah, I think over time, I allowed myself to become more and more authentic and vulnerable. And anytime I would write the most raw about experience, that's when people would really start connecting and reaching out to me. And that was good feedback and made me realize that people don't really want experts. They want real people sharing their real thoughts and feelings and experiences and struggles. And once I realized that I didn't have to play this certain role, I don't have to be this expert or this Pinterest mom, that does everything perfectly. And, because I would, in the beginning of blogging, it was really about like, hey, this is a great way to teach your kids this, or this is a fun activity you can do with your kids. And so it was all about like more like Pinterest worthy stuff, how can you be the perfect mom, and I feel like it really shift over time as little by little I would start sharing real life things that I was struggling with. And that's when people would come out of the woodworks and be like, oh my gosh, I really loved your message. And I'm like, maybe I should do more of that, because I actually really enjoy being real and writing about things that are that I'm going through in my life, and things that I'm learning or things that I'm struggling with, and what I'm learning about the things that I'm struggling with. And that became more exciting for me anyway. And I realized that's kind of what people want more of. So it kind of evolved into this like perfect, like Pinterest worthy blog to this is just my real life and I'm going to lay it all out there.
Yeah. And that's something that Brene Brown really has right. I think in Mormonism and in many cultural traditions, we're encouraged to hide our problems, put forward a perfect face or a perfect front, and make it, emphasize the good and minimize the bad, and make sure everything appears great. And what Brene Brown has taught us, among many other people, is that that's not how true human connection is built. It's actually when we're vulnerable, when we show our weaknesses, when we talk about difficult things, that people feel drawn to us. They feel like you're being real. They feel like you're being authentic, and they feel like that they're not alone, that they're not crazy. And we all kind of heal and grow together to the extent that we're vulnerable and open about our challenges, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was very helpful. I loved reading all of Brene Brown's books, and definitely Braving the Wilderness was something that was really helpful for me when we first started being public about our faith transition, because like we told you in our first interview, it was very difficult to go from having the majority of my following being all Mormon moms to coming out and saying, but guess what, guys, I'm leaving the church. I no longer believe in this. And there's a lot of angry moms, people that really looked up to me and then were really disappointed. And that felt awful to disappoint so many people. But Brene Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness, helped me get through that and realize that I can't just continue pretending for the sake of being liked by other people. I just have to put this out there. And it's been a roller coaster of emotions, but it was more intense in the beginning when I lost so many followers and received a lot of hate mail, and a lot of women just really disappointed that I would put this out there so publicly, shaming me and telling me that I'm, causing people to doubt their own religion and their own beliefs. And I shouldn't be doing that. I should keep this all quiet. And I just couldn't do that. I just couldn't hold such a big part of my life in, this is what I'm going through. And there's no way I could remain silent about this.
Yeah. And your and Sean's vulnerability has really been inspiring to so many people. So congratulations to that. Let's talk about a few of these subtopics. What's it like I'm torn, to the largest extent, Mormon Stories has always been about showcasing other people. So I've been able to just hide behind, in many instances, just allowing people to tell their stories. I haven't taken on the role of like being the essayist or being the YouTuber or kind of being that public figure. Although now that Margie has started to do coaching and we've started to do some work together, there is a small degree to which a lot of our private stuff is now a little bit more out in the open. But let's talk about that. Talk about the difficulties or the blessings of kind of like bearing your soul to the world. Some would call it narcissistic. Some would call it attention seeking or attention grabbing. Yeah. How do you think about that? When you're kind of living your life as if people are, it's almost like the Truman Show. Like when you're constantly sharing photos, sharing podcast episodes, sharing essays, sharing your deepest and darkest things with everybody. Is that hard? Are there difficulties with that?
Yeah, because people will always want to judge or draw their own conclusions, and it is hard because I think it was harder for me in the beginning because I would say something and I would get a message or something and they would be like, I can't believe you would say that. And then I'd be like, want to retract, like, oh, wait, did I say that wrong? Or, oh, like maybe that came out wrong. Or so I would question myself a lot when if somebody would message me and, and make me feel like what I shared didn't sit right with them. And so it is hard because you have to really detach yourself from that constant worry of, wait, if I say this, and Sean's really good at this. He's really good at just putting it all out there and not really second guessing himself. He has a lot more, he trusts himself more than I do. And I'm still working through that and trying to get to a place where I'm like, well, yes, this may rub somebody the wrong way. I may not say this right. There's always going to be people that disagree.
How do you get confidence that you have something worthwhile to share? Like there's 7-8 billion people out there. Everybody would have something to share. Maybe you would feel insecure. I'm not smart enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not wise enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not handsome enough. I'm not, famous enough, whatever it is. How do you get to the place where you feel comfortable giving people advice or sharing your perspective? Because I think we all, if any of us are in the public arena in some way or another, we have to kind of reach that moment of saying, no, I do think I have something to contribute. How did you get there?
I just really am of the belief that every single person, whether they're like on social media or not, have something extremely valuable for somebody else here in this life. And I just happen to choose to do it on social media. But I feel like based on my own experiences, when I look back on all the different people who have influenced me and who I am, it's like these little tiny experiences, like one person I only conversed with for one day who really impacted my life. And so I realized that there's certain things that you say, there's certain experiences that you have, even down to your voice, the way you look, the exact experience that you have. There's something about you that is needed by somebody else, and I feel like it is funny to think even down to the voice, because certain people will share certain messages and maybe you don't like their voice, or maybe something about their voice is very comforting. So I just think that everybody is so completely unique and our experiences are unique. And when I think of all the people who have shared their stories with me, and how much it impacted my life, I realized that it is important for us all to share our stories, and it doesn't have to be on this kind of a platform. That's where I'm choosing to do it. But I feel I'm very confident in knowing that and I really love the law of attraction. I believe that the people who are needing my exact story and what I have to offer will find me. And just like I've found the people that I've needed. And I feel that way, like finding Mormon Stories Podcast. I feel like it was just so crazy how I discovered it, and it was exactly what I needed. And so I think that as we all do our part in sharing our stories on any kind of platform, or even just in real life connections, you really are having an impact on other people's lives. And you don't have to be any kind of an expert. You don't have to have a certain kind of a background or experience.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, totally. Okay, here's another question. When you're when you're doing a blog or YouTube channel, you're basically showing them your kids, you're showing them your husband or your spouse, you're showing them your lives. And I imagine it can get in your head, like, instead of just enjoying the family vacation, you're worrying about your hair and the clothes and the shot and how that image gets portrayed. And instead of enjoying that family moment, there's always like this extra process in your head of like, should we photograph this? Should I blog about it? Should I text about it? Is there ever this conflict of like, how do we just be the Escobars in a private way versus like, how do we make sure we're creating content for the blog or the YouTube channel? And does the desire to be public ever disrupt just the ability to live that day-to-day life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I have found a really healthy balance around it. But in the beginning, or not even so much in the beginning, but just maybe even like 3 or 4 years ago, it did feel all consuming. Like it's constantly on my mind. Oh, I need to create a video. I need to take a picture of this. I need to share a post here. I need to do that. And it was all consuming. And I didn't like how it was making me feel. And Sean didn't like how it was disrupting our life and just enjoying activities together. But I think over time, I've just allowed myself to detach from it a little bit more. I'll do like, I won't always document everything that we're doing. Like I'll go multiple days without posting any Insta stories or posting any pictures. But in the beginning, or even just like I said, 3 or 4 years ago, I definitely felt this pressure that I needed to post constantly and everything needed to be out there on social media. And that's the way to become successful as a blogger and any kind of an influencer. So I've kind of just let that all go, and we'll take pictures here and there if we want to, but there's lots of times where we'll go out on a hike or somewhere and I won't take an Insta story or take a single picture. And I'm just really trying to enjoy the moment. But I think it just was a process of me trying to find that healthy balance and releasing that pressure to constantly be posting everything about our lives. I feel like I can write about things later. Like if it's an experience that it was meaningful, I'll write about it later. I don't have to capture it in the moment.
Okay, so you kind of have firewalled some just family time where you're off the grid, off social media, out of the mindset of having to capture. And by having sort of that firewall, you can protect enough family time to where you feel like you and your family are getting what you need.
Yeah, exactly.
In your book, I'm going to talk about just some of the micro themes in your book, and then we'll bring on some of your readers. You talk about overcoming jealousy and resentment. I think that's something that a lot of moms deal with. It's sort of like you want to just do good, but then you see other people, and by all appearances, and by the way, social media contributes to this. Social media makes it look like everybody's happy, everybody's healthy, everyone's marriage is great, everyone's kids are thriving, everyone's successful. So you can feel insecure. And then sometimes that insecurity can either lead to jealousy or resentment or just depression.
Yeah.
What are your tips for moms who struggle with insecurity, jealousy, or resentment? What have you learned has been helpful for you?
Well, I think it's important to all be of the understanding that with the way we use social media, it is kind of a trend that we post our most beautiful pictures, and we don't have to be angry about that. And you don't have to post your crappy pictures just to prove a point, and be like, well, I'm going to be more real than other people. I think that it is what it is. And you have to just realize that that's what we're doing. We're posting our best pictures, and you don't have to be angry about that, and know that nobody has a perfect life. And I think that's just a false belief that some of us may have adapted and think, well, they just have it better than me. But I just have come to realize, getting to know people online and then offline and realizing like, whoa, they they hide a lot of this stuff, like this is not out on social media, nor should they have to put it out on social media just to be like, okay, guys, I promise, like, my life sucks too, like, we don't have to do that. We don't have to contribute to negativity or complaining on social media for the sake of being real, like, let's just be of the understanding that we're all posting our best pictures. We're all just trying to keep it positive on social media. We don't need to use social media to complain and be like, yeah, my life sucks because this happened. You guys all feel better now, So I just think that we just have to realize that that's kind of the game of social media, and it's our job to stop comparing and thinking that other people have it better than us.
And taking social media just totally out of it for a second, how does a mom who's just looking around her ward or looking around her neighborhood, how does a mom deal with feelings of insecurity and depression and jealousy and envy, taking social media out of it just psychologically and practically?
Well, I think surrounding yourself with people that you can really connect with that will be more vulnerable. And for me, and I don't want to use a blanket statement and say that all LDS women are not, being open and authentic about their real life. But in my experience, I haven't found many friends within the church who would really open up to me and would be willing to share, things that they're struggling with. And it was very surface level. A lot of my friendships in my own ward and, in the church, we never really got to know each other on a deeper level because I think because of what we're taught, we're afraid to share those things because, first of all, we think maybe we're the only ones that are struggling with this. Or second of all, we're not supposed to talk about even past transgressions. I always felt worried about talking about any of my background experience, as a teenager or anything like that, because I felt like we're not supposed to share those things, which was really hard for me on my mission. I wanted to share more of my life story, but there was so much that I was tiptoeing around, and I wished I could just be comfortable being more authentic and just sharing whatever I felt like I wanted to share, not worrying about the judgment of others. So I don't know if there's an easy answer, like how do you not feel jealousy and resentment when you're constantly comparing yourself? I think it just takes time and work on, and I talk about this in the book, like different things that I've learned to really question my own thoughts and beliefs. Like I learned a lot from Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is, and really getting to the root of, wait, why do you believe this? Why do you think because she got a new remodeled kitchen, why do you think that her life is better than yours, or that her kids always eat healthy food? Like, what's making you believe that you are any less than her because you see something good about her? Like somehow it's taking away from you.
So it sounds like you're saying, think it through, realize that everybody's got their skeletons, everybody's got their problems. And in some sense, that's just what the brain does, is compare and make you feel kind of inadequate. But it sounds like you're also saying surround yourself with really good people who are vulnerable, who are real, and don't live too much in the online world or in the virtual world, or don't live in solitude. Find some real friends to connect with about what you're experiencing in life and about what they're really experiencing in life. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
And not friendships based on competition and trying to make it look as though you've got everything together and each one trying to outdo each other.
Yeah.
Maybe try to find friendships where it's just all about the good and the bad and supporting each other and helping each other through. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.